What's going on, guys? This is Yasin, and today we're going to be going over the best decks to play post banlist, but also post the Doom of Dimensions. So a lot of things have changed off of the banlist, but also will change with the new set coming out very soon. So yeah, let's get right into it. As soon as you smash the like and subscribe button, and also watch the video until the end. Don't be a bitch. Anyways, the first deck is Magical Musketeer, which is a deck that utilizes the Fiendsmith engine very well. I think it is a good rogue deck, so that's not me talking shit about the deck, but obviously, you know, it's a far cry from what it used to be back when it had like less good decks to compete with. So this deck just feels like it's a little too mid-rangey, and sometimes it feels a little underwhelming, but obviously your monsters being full Fiendsmith combo is really cool because you don't need Moan of the Close Sky, and Lacrima is a fantastic card. So that's something that I like a lot about Magical Musketeer, but I don't think a lot of people will be playing the deck. And yeah, it can struggle like going second if you don't draw like Link into the Vrains and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a cool deck, but nothing more than that. Malice now is a decent option. It would have been like a top tier contender if it like obviously still had Splash Mage, but Splash Mage banned and Doormaster 1 really crippled the consistency a lot. So now, even though you don't have to worry about Lancia anymore because nobody's going to be side decking Lancia because it doesn't have too much coverage, this deck is just no, definitely not as good as before the ban list, unfortunately, I guess, for Malice players, but fortunately for people like me. Mathmech is unplayable, you know, no Splash Mage, no Link Decoder, and only one Circular. This deck absolutely sucks. White Forest is probably at the very bottom of decent option. This deck just plays too many bad cards, unfortunately. That's like the biggest drawback with this deck, but apart from that, it's actually very good into like Fua. It's not the best into Droll, but Droll is probably not going to be main decked because if the best decks are like Yummy and Dragon Tail, why would you want to main deck a card that is abysmal against those two decks, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a cool deck, but nothing more than that, unfortunately. Despia is also like a decent option with 2 branded fusions. That's really nice. It got a little boost for the ban list. And you can still Albion into like some annoying floodgates, but you can't obviously Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. You can like Ido, for example. And that's pretty good if people don't play, you know, outs to it. So very scary deck to play against. And also it can still win without Albion, you know. It's still a real deck, and the ceiling level is very high. You can also splash branded fusion Dragon Tail, but I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. Fire King, another decent option. Maybe like at the top of Rogue, but it can play Dominus Impulse, so that's the cool thing about it. But I don't know, I guess it can also play the new Dominus card, but that card's not even that good. So that's like the biggest problem that I have with it. Like against let's say Yummy, it doesn't really do too much. So it's an okay deck. It depends. Like as a meta call, it could work. If anything, it might be a little worse than White Forest. The ceiling level is much lower, and you can still break in Fire King, unfortunately. Sometimes you draw like the not great combination of cards that don't really work too well, or you draw like too many engine cards that suck, like multiple Sanctuary Islands and Ponix, or I guess that's not necessarily the worst, but you understand what I'm saying. Mimigul Yummy, I think it's very overhyped. Going second, it sucks. It's so many engine cards, so many bad cards. A lot of things can go wrong with it. I don't like it at all. Trap Brigade, yeah, the new support is cool, but going second, I don't really see the edge that you're gonna have. It doesn't even have the ability to play any of the Dominus cards. There's way too many different attributes. There's like Fire, Earth. Yeah, just not the best, honestly. Orchist, that's the decent option for sure. You can play Orchist K9. I think that's really nice. You can bridge into Orchist using, you know, Infinite Track River Stormer to search Scrap Recycler and then dump Harp Horror and then dump something else like World Legacy or World Wand if you play it. So if you play like 2 bricks in your deck, you can make like 8 disruptions off of 1 card. Really high ceiling level, and it didn't really get crippled from the ban list at all because the K9 engine, other than Paradise Smasher, is still the exact same thing. So unlike Crystron, you can say that this deck didn't really suffer too much, but also this deck was worse than Crystron, so it can be like a top tier contender. Memento is a decent option. It has some issues against Yummy, for example, going second. Not only is Herald of Arclight's continuous effect really oppressive, but also if you go like Joko summon Tatsuno Toshigo, that plays super hard into the double Book of Moon. So, you know, you don't really play too many hand traps to begin with, or like too many non-engine, which is already a turn-off. And then Forbidden Droplet is not even a real board breaker because it can get negated by Herald of Arclight because you can't send monsters from the hand. So you'd have to send monsters from the field, which obviously defeats the purpose of trying to use Droplet. And that's like one of the best non-engine cards to play in Memento, so that's kind of annoying. You can still play Super Poly though, and Super Poly is decent against Yummy, and arguably against Dragon Tail, it depends on like their setup. If they play Dragoon, they can be pretty good. Fiendsmith decks in general, I think they're fine. Lacrima is really nice, but obviously there's no moons, so it depends on like what deck is playing the Fiendsmith engine. Like Primite Fiendsmith can still work, obviously, because you would Fiendsmith combo using like an actual light fiend, you know, Dipity. It's not like you're making moon or like you're relying on it, so it can work, and you can play a lot of hand traps. Bestial Fiendsmith, on the other hand, yeah, that deck really needed Moon of the Close Sky, I believe, so that's a little like bad for the deck. Archmage, I think, is like a side events deck for now. It's just, nah, it's not the best. Dododo, the Dwarf, Dododo Raziel, I guess. That's just a rogue deck. Has, like, consistency issues. It's not the best going second. It plays a lot of bad cards. Not my cup of tea. Primite, whatever. I think that's, like, the same thing, actually. It's basically Primite and Fiendsmith decks, interchangeable. But I think, nah, actually, I think it's, like, way worse. I think it's probably, like, somewhere here or something like that. So, yeah, White Forest probably isn't actually the worst deck and decent option. Or maybe I should actually downgrade them to, like, top of Rogue. Maybe, I'm not sure. Blue Eyes is another Rogue deck. It doesn't really have, like, a true edge going second. It plays, like, 7 to 8 or 9 bricks, potentially. That's way too much to my liking. And the end board going first can actually get broken. So that's, and by broken, I mean, like, picked apart. Not, like, broken unfair. Even though you can do broken things, but... You know, it's Blue Eyes is Blue Eyes. It's usually played as a mid-range deck, so in a deck with like very aggressive decks, it's not the best. Cyber Dragon is unplayable, unfortunately, even though I think it's one of the coolest decks of all time. It's my favorite deck of all time, but yeah, this deck right now, it plays a huge amount of terrible cards. Kashtira is like on the same league as like all the other, you know, like Fiendsmith decks, obviously. It's just another deck that used the Fiendsmith engine, but without Moon of the Close Sky. If you summon Unicorn and like a Chummy, you're not doing anything, you know, it's not as before. But Unicorn is broken against the what's his face, the Yummy deck, so that's nice, but it doesn't really do too much against Dragon Tail, unfortunately. Sky Striker is a top tier contender for sure. It's a very good deck. It has a lot of really good matchups, like Yummy is a good matchup, Lunalite is a good matchup if you play Hamp, and then Dragon Tail is a weird matchup. It's not the best because they have a lot of resources and they can negate your spells. They have an infinite grind game and they're very difficult to kill. So Sky Striker, which already has issues OT King, will have even more issues against that deck. That, to me, that's a little frustrating for if you're a Sky Striker player, but it's still a decent option that has a lot of... it's still a decent deck that has a lot of good options. The Evil Twin deck, I think, is a good deck. It's better than Magical Musket when it comes to like decks that can bridge into Fiendsmith naturally, just using real light Fiends, instead of, again, using any two monsters to go into Fiendsmith combo. But this deck is really bad into Fua, and they can lose to Nibiru pretty hard. But obviously with Lacrima being able to rush like a Caesar and stuff like that, it got a little better, I guess you can say. But Lacrima is also such a good card in this deck because you can revive back any of your light Fiends. So you can revive back the Link 4, Trouble Sunny, whatever. That's pretty nice. The Gem Knight deck, that's a very good deck as well. You can play it as a going second OTK deck. I don't really think this is a top tier contender though, so I'm just going to keep it there. Yubel is really bad. It's just like super inconsistent. It plays a huge amount of bricks, and it sucks going second now. So yeah, it's not really good. It got nerfed way too much and way too often. Vanquish Soul is unplayable. It lost 4 starters in a deck that already had consistency issues, so that's terrible. I think everybody can agree on the fact that Vanquish Soul is really like way worse. Like you can play Small World, sure, but like, are you really trying to play like way worse starters and like not have as many attributes anymore? So like even your Jiaolongs now, they're not searching too much now. And you're also banishing so many cards, you're using so many cards from your hand. I don't know, like the best way to play the deck. And there's also like the Dempsey build, like the Dwarf Go Glove, and this card right here, the Warrior. But I'm also not like a super big fan of it. You can't even make the Link one because you're going to be locked in Rexisa monsters only. The Odeon deck is unplayable, really shitty. Very bad. I think even Archmage is better than it. Actually, I think Archmage is better than most of these decks, if anything. Labyrinth is unplayable because of the new time rules. If you grind too much with your opponent, you can get a double loss. That's unfortunate. You're gonna have to win really quickly. Honestly, if you're a good Labyrinth player, then it's a good deck though. It's probably like around here maybe. Heraldic Beast Raziel is just like shit with 1x Raziel, which is by far the best starter in your deck. I think that's just like not good at all. The Crystron deck is another top tier contender. And shoutouts to my Crystron spreadsheet, which you can find on my website, yacineygo.com. Very first link at the top of the description box below. Shameless plug, of course. But my spreadsheet actually covers lines without, you know, like relying on Paradise Smasher. So it's actually funny how the ban list made my spreadsheet even more relevant for you, because I didn't want like to showcase combos that were like super risky into the ban list. So there was only like one combo, I think, that showcased Paradise Smasher. Now you're going to be playing with more Crystron cards. Like Thisvern and Citri are going to be way more important, because now when you get Fuad, you can't rely on Paradise Smasher, which means that the best help boards that you can do would be Ripper with the X first released, Izuna in hand, and then Sulfador, Tristalos on board, Cluster on board, and then you're going to be quick sinking into Korn Galdrax on the opponent's turn, banish 3 cards, and then Cluster, destroy 2 cards, and then you got 4 interruptions with the K9, so Ripper negate, Izuna into a rank 5, and then X Force pop, and also Jax to pop, or Werewolf to look at hand and banish a card. So yeah, 6 interruptions by only giving 1 Juan to Fua. assuming that you drew like a Joko Solfador, which obviously is like the best case scenario. If you drew Joko Inclusion, it's way worse actually now, because you would have to go into like El Skeletus to recycle back the chop card. Actually, no, that's not true. That is not true at all, because you're just sending Smyger to search the cluster. So yeah, that's my bad for being stupid, but whatever. You understand what I'm trying to say. This deck is very good still. It didn't get a big drawback, like a big nerf. Paradise Smasher getting banned is like the most annoying thing. Inclusion getting limited is not like the end of the world. It's a deck that has to like worry about Yummy being like a really bad matchup for it if you're going second, because unfortunately, Joku Reveal a Monster doesn't play well into the Double Book of Moon. This is the exact same argument that I've used for Memento. So that's the reason why, unfortunately, this deck is maybe not like in the best position it's been since the very start. But the ceiling level of the deck going first, I want to argue, is actually better than any other deck in the game right now. So without the shadow of a doubt, this is still a very, very good deck. Even as a huge Crystron enthusiast, it's very difficult for me to say that it's a deck that can easily win a YCS. I have to be honest with you, you know? It's a deck that does have its strengths and weaknesses. And the strengths is that it is the best going first deck, and the weaknesses is that going second can be very shaky. Top tier contender, I think everybody can be happy with this. The MST deck, I think it has potential. It can play some cool floodgates. It can actually play the Performapal Rainbow Magician, and then you can start using multiple MSTs to keep destroying your opponent's back row so that your opponent will never be able to use monster effects. So it does have some cool lines. I don't think it's like the, you know, a great option. I think this deck is very similar to like Odeon when it first came out, where people are going to be interested in the deck, they're going to be playing the deck, and then after like a couple of months, they're just going to throw it to the garbage because they're going to be like, okay, yeah, maybe not as good as I thought or whatever. So that's the reason why I'm anticipating that and I'm keeping it in Rogue. The exact positioning honestly doesn't really matter too much. As long as it's in Rogue, I'm happy, but I don't think it's like a decent option. Maybe like Fire King should be downgraded, but a lot of people like Fire King, so just so that I don't get a dislike on this video, I'm gonna keep Fire King there. You know, you see how not biased I am? There you go. Anyways, Dragon Tail, this is a great deck. This deck is eating real good from the BANLIST because it didn't get hit whatsoever. It was already a good deck before, even though it didn't have like a great conversion rate. A lot of people played the deck at YCS Vancouver, and a lot of them didn't, you know, top. Only 3 of them topped, which is unfortunate. And at Worlds, nobody played this deck, and there was a really good reason for that. The deck was very, very bad into the K9 decks because Izuna is always live against it, and also the ceiling level is not high enough, so if you're playing against a combo deck, you get bodied to oblivion. But now that the format is a little more mid-rangey, a little more, you know, I guess more diverse in a way, Dragon Tail might actually be better, because every other deck got nerfed, but not this deck. So that's the reason why, you know, if everybody is, like, downgraded, this deck is indirectly elevated. So obviously, this is great news for Dragon Tail, and if the Magistus support comes out, then you can start playing this deck as a combo deck, which is a great thing, because it plays a very nice ratio of, like, the Magistus cards. Like, none of them are really bad cards. All of them actually do something, and I like this a lot. So I think Magistus Dragon Tail is the way to go if Spoon comes out, but if it doesn't, then obviously you're gonna have to play the old build with, like, either King of the Swamp or Blazing Cartesia, etc., which, I don't know. But going second, you have some great options. This deck is naturally good at breaking boards going second. The main issue with this deck is that it bricks. Unfortunately, there's not enough starters. There's 12 organic Dragon Tail starters, and then there's also 5 mana, but if you don't draw like 5 mana with a Dragon Tail, then it doesn't really count, you know? So yeah, that's kind of problematic. Anyways, Lunalite, this is a great deck. I think that it's a deck that could actually win the YCS, but there is an issue with this deck, and it's the fact that Mitsurugi is going to be extremely popular because this deck is insanely good into Yummy because Ame no Murakumo destroys everything, and Yummy is allergic to Regekis, whether it's like, you know, as a board breaker or as an interruption on their own turn. They really do struggle with that. So as long as you don't have to worry about a Herald of the Arclight, you know, Mitsurugi is going to wipe the floor with them. That's a huge problem. So I think Mitsurugi is an extremely good meta call, and it can search a Kaiju to out the Lunalite Liger Dancer, and it can recycle back the Kaiju. So unfortunately, just because of the existence of Mitsurugi, it's hard for me to justify Lunalite being better than it, because I think Lunalite is more convoluted, whereas Mitsurugi is more streamlined, it's more simple to play and deck build. People have been, you know, playing with this deck for much longer than Lunalite, featuring the new support from Duelist Advance, because this is an Alliance Insight deck, whereas this obviously came out after, and we've got way less Lunalite players than Mitsurugi players, because people who played Razor Mitsurugi might actually, you know, have, you know, they might have actually changed to like pure Mitsurugi, which I think was a downgrade before, but now it's actually an upgrade because Raziel Mitsurugi, which is the next deck on the list, I think this deck is not good. I think this deck is a rogue deck because Raziel doesn't bridge into Mitsurugi. However, Mitsurugi bridges into Raziel because there's no King of the Feral Imps, but you can still use 2 Mitsurugi monsters to make do a drive or Banshee. So that's obviously very nice, but yeah, it doesn't really change, you know, everything. Anyways, Tenpai Dragon. This deck is a going second deck. I mean, it can work against Yummy if you play a lot of board breakers. It could maybe work against Tenpai, but sorry, Dragon Tail, but I'm not really convinced. I don't know. I think this deck is just like not worth playing overall. It's just not. I don't know. Maybe like better or worse than Tri Brigade. I don't really know. I don't really care too much. Maybe here, maybe here. I really couldn't care less. Snake Eye, Moon of the Close Sky got banned, which was one of the best cards in the deck, and the deck is ultra inconsistent, so I think it's dog shit. Probably here. It's not good. It's definitely a rogue deck. It is not a great deck. If anything, the deck got less consistent. Even though there's 3 Snake Eye Ash and 3 Poplar, Poplar no longer does anything. Because the combo before was normal summon Pop, Surge Divine Temple, play Snake Eye Ash, link off Pop into like Anima, now it can be Link Rainbow, which is cool. But then yeah, you place Pop in the Spell and Trap Zone, and then you use Pop and Ash to make Snake Eye's Doom Dragon, and then you make Moon of the Close Sky, and then Requiem, and then Fiendsmith combo, and then Promethean Princess using DS Era in sequence. Now it can be, you know, Lacrima with a monster. And then this is where you would go Princess, revive back Snake Eye Ash, and then you would play from there. Obviously, you can't do this anymore, so that's that's really bad. And that's one of the reasons why I think that the Snake Eye deck is absolute dog shit. Absolute trash. I think if anything, it's a side events deck. It's just, it basically got a nerf from the ban list, as crazy as this may sound, unless you draw like actual Fiendsmith Engine, but then you're not playing a 1-card combo deck, and what you're doing, every other deck can do. And you're also playing a lot of terrible cards in this deck, with, like I said, not a lot of starters. So it's trash. Regenesis, it's very similar to like every other like mid-range deck, so I'm just gonna put it there. It's not the best, but whatever. It doesn't really lose too much, because exactly as Pack has said, it doesn't really do anything. The Yummy deck is either like first, second, third, very interchangeable. I think it's the deck to beat. Not necessarily the best deck, but it's definitely the kind of deck that a lot of people will be playing, and it's a deck that you can anticipate to do very well at every single event, because, again, 17 starters, 20 hand traps, 3 bricks, that's the best ratio out of every single deck in this page. It really speaks volume on how, you know, just clean the deck is for Yummy, and it has like a huge, you know, mechanical advantage over everyone else. But the issue with Yummy is that like a lot of decks can actually naturally crack the Yummy board. And when we look at Dragon Tail, which can, you know, obviously like use a lot of trigger effects in the graveyard and just demolish the board going second, or Mitsurugi that can make Murakumo destroy everything and chain block, Lunalite that can, you know, use board breakers and then use Lunite Fusion or heavy polymerization. That's really bad because this deck is not outing a Liger Dancer, and it has huge issues with Murakumo, and also Dragon Tail can definitely beat this deck very, very easily. So I think Yummy is like, it's a very weird deck. It doesn't really feel like it has like a huge edge against these decks, but it definitely does beat most of the other decks. Maybe not Sky Striker though. So yeah, like all these 4 decks are really good into Yummy, unfortunately. So yeah, this deck has not the best matchups. Solfa Court, I think, is shit. Yeah, no, it's garbage. It's a side event deck. It doesn't really play a lot of... it sucks going second. It's just not good. The Rose Dragon deck is probably the worst deck here. It does nothing, and it sucks. Megalith... Actually, maybe you can play Megalith... Megalith Mitsurugi. That could be nice. I'm actually going to put it there. I think the monsters are Earth, unfortunately, so you would not be able to play... Oh, yeah, that's really... That sucks. If they're Earth, then you can't even play Dominus Impulse anymore, so that defeats the purpose. You know, like, Dominus Impulse is like one of the biggest turns on. Like, every deck that can play it has a huge advantage just because it's the best hand trap out there that is like not playable by everyone, because obviously Fua is like probably usually the best hand trap. Maybe not against like, you know, these decks, but apart from that, it's just overall really good. But yeah, Megalith, I don't know, it's just... why would you complicate your head and play this deck when you can just play the better ritual deck? Mermail, for sure a good deck. It's a good deck going first. It's a naturally good deck going second. The issue is Herald of the Arclight. That's like the biggest problem, really. If Herald of the Arclight ever gets banned, then everything about this ban list will change, just because you don't have to worry about like the annoying Floodgate. The Floodgate effect of Herald of Arclight is more annoying than the negation, ironically, which is really stupid. Anyways, DDD, this is an okay deck. I think it's a little overhyped. I think it's probably like here, interchangeable with Orchest and Memento. Maybe Memento is a little better because the ceiling is actually scary as hell going first. But DDD going second, this deck is not good from what I've seen and heard. And also going first, it doesn't have a lot, like enough starters. It plays a lot of like bad cards. And it's abysmal into Fua, apparently. So that kind of sucks. But I'm still going to look into it and see if it can be solved a little more. I still think it's a good deck, you know, otherwise it would have been like in the side events tier. But no, it's, yeah, maybe not like worth playing. True Draco, that's obviously a side events deck. It's a fun deck, but it sucks. Maybe here. Nah, there's way less floodgates now. K9 Pure, this deck is horrible, garbage. It breaks. It has like there's no appeal to playing this deck. Like the Yummy matchup, you're gonna be losing 100% of the time, quite literally. And then even against Dragon Tail, you may not even beat them going second. I feel like against Mitsurugi, you're always gonna lose. You have like 0 outs to Liger Dancer. It's objectively worse than Crystron. It still gets hand trapped to Oblivion or board break to death by Lunalite, Sky Striker. So yeah, this deck has no good matchups. It's just absolute dog shit. Gookie is shit, and then Monarch is on the same level as True Draco, maybe. So it's still a side events deck, or maybe at the very bottom of Rogue, but nobody has really done anything with this deck, so why would I put it any higher, you know? Like, at the very least, like, these decks can actually still kind of top the YCS. It's gonna be an uphill battle. But the side events decks, honestly, I can't really see a single one of them doing well. Like, even at a regional, I can't really see it too well. Like, top 8, maybe Ardmage and Sulfacore, they could. Like, these two decks are not, like, horrible. But, like, everything else is very bad. Just either they're inconsistent, or they suck going second, or they got nerfed to death. Like, Mathmech got worse with the ban list, even though it did nothing wrong. Like, at least, like, Unlimited Circular Konami. Like, come on. If you want to ban Splash Mage, which the deck relied on, at the very least do that. But no, that was too much to ask. Of course. But that's it for this tier list video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts about the format in the comment section below. Do you think it's going to be a good one? Do you think the ban list was a masterpiece? You let me know in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.